Watch this.
It's just a place that kids can hang out.
But misinformation about what happens at a hangout for Nampa's LGBTQ community has put a community bulletin board in the crosshairs and started a campaign of threatening messages to the local library? Luma. Yesterday we learned it was clunky and costly, but today we learned the state's payroll system has another problem, to the tune of $14.5 million. Idaho made a lot of money in the timber industry, and sawmills have historically been relegated to remote outposts. But a new urban sawmill in Boise is trying to change that perception and be more green.
Many of us grew up in the community and didn't have that growing up and wanted to do better. So that's where it started. Very simple idea of just doing better.
Trying to do better just got a little bit harder for one Nampa nonprofit. Clutch is a 2-year-old organization that holds weekly meetings for young people in the Nampa LGBTQ+ community. They've been in the news a few times, like the story KTVB did right after they started. But for the most part, they've just kind of gone about their business, kind of flown under the radar, which is fitting since their name and logo derives from another way to describe a safe space for a small group, a clutch. But recently that group and the spaces they occupy have been feeling a little unsafe. When it became known there were flyers promoting their weekly meetings posted in the Nampa Public Library. Claims of perversion and grooming and activities not included in what Clutch embodies. As for what Clutch does, well, we decided to ask them.
We're simple, we're affirming, we're based in love.
Clutch first found footing in Nampa in 2022.
And that's what community really is about.
Holding their weekly meetings at a local church.
Right.
Mindy Oldenkamp was there at the beginning.
Clutch was born out of a need to just provide something better for the youth in our community. We continuously see them face policies and decisions that tell them, especially the queer LGBTQ youth, that they're not able to discuss themselves or express themselves.
Word spread slowly at first, just letting people know they existed.
And that worked-ish, and that helped us kind of just let us get our feet under us. And then we're like, okay, let's do this. Let's just be bold and be here. We have every right to be here. So.
About a year and a half ago, they started putting up flyers that included their address.
They're up in community bulletin boards, not places that we're affiliated with, just places that offer community space so we can advertise those kind of things.
Like the community bulletin board on the 3rd floor of the Nampa Library, conveniently sharing a corner with the Freedom Shrine. How recently did you put it up at the library?
We've had a flyer there for the last year and a half.
But it was only over the last week that flyer has gotten some unwanted attention.
The Nampa Library is essentially inviting kids as young as 14 to hang out with 20-year-olds and talk about gay sex.
It makes me sad, and largely I just think, what a weird thing to say. What an unfortunate place to have an opinion and to just make assumptions. When you don't come at things with curiosity, you miss the heart of a matter, and that's sort of my overarching feeling about this whole thing.
Mindy says this kind of attention was just a matter of time. Why?
I've lived here all my life, and I know that there's a lot of very split perceptions on people and who has the right to be in community and who is encouraged to not have those rights. And so we just figured we would draw some perhaps negative attention at some point, but that's sort of the purpose of why we do what we do, so that members of the LGBTQ community, especially youth, know that they have a place that they can be affirmed and safe.
However, this pushback came from outside the Nampa community. Last week, an Idaho affiliate of Mass Resistance, a conservative anti-LGBTQ organization, posted this to social media, claiming the Nampa Library was, quote, handing out groomer flyers to children. It wasn't, but that didn't stop the calls for phone calls and emails.
This is not okay. Everybody needs to call them and tell them to stop doing this if you have ethics and morals.
The library received more than 50 messages.
It seems like a strange and weird place to attack. The library is just a community space, and they've done nothing to draw this kind of heat.
It says, shame on you. Perverts meeting with confused kids to talk about their sexual preferences. Outrageous and disgusting. I assume you'll take responsibility for the criminal aftermath.
It just makes me so sad when people make wild assumptions. No one here has inquired about what Clutch does. To just come in swinging and making unfortunate and just incredibly inaccurate accusations is just sad to me, and a waste of time, truthfully, a hurtful waste of time.
One of those emails was sent by the field director of Mass Resistance, Arthur Shopper. Do you know what they do?
Okay, I don't care at this point what they do. The fact is that they want to promote homosexuality, transgenderism to youth is just abominable. This is an outrage. We're talking about adults mingling with minors, and the whole reason they're there is about a so-called sexual identity. This is a sexually explicit topic in and of itself. That's not acceptable.
When you have
this is grooming at its finest.
A conversation was about 10 minutes of that. The gist of it is, you guys are putting up flyers to entice kids to come to a meeting where young children and adults can talk about sex.
That's so far from the truth of what Clutch is. Clutch is simple. We offer a meal and we offer a place to have community. We offer an optional activity like karaoke or painting or bingo, and that's the heart of what we do. It's just a place that kids can hang out.
It was brought up to us that maybe if the flyer just said teenagers and didn't say 14 to 20-year-olds, why include the 18, 19, and 20?
You know, when you're young and you're entering college, you're still very much a youth, and there's some overlap there. And we wanted to make sure, as many other agencies and entities that are nonprofits, it's a very common age range to serve, so that as kids bridge that gap from high school and then trying to figure out what's next for them, they still had a place to go.
The flyers are no longer, well, not no longer, but they aren't currently are not up at the library. You gonna put them back up?
We have every right to post our flyers wherever there's a community bulletin board. You know, it's unfortunate they've been put in the middle of something that they're not even involved in. So, you know, community is for everyone, and the community bulletin board is for everyone.
Nampa Library told us today, while staff will periodically go through the community bulletin boards to make sure nothing violates their posting policy, they did not remove those Clutch flyers, and they aren't sure who did. Many of the emails and phone calls to the library, which we were told were much worse, more threatening than the emails, called the flyers offensive, quote, inappropriate, and, quote, indoctrination, and claimed they violated the recently passed library law, the one that says anything of sexual conduct or considered harmful to minors cannot be available to kids in libraries. Nampa Library tells us the Clutch flyer is neither of those things. Mindy told us Clutch consists of about 25 volunteers who are all vetted, they pass background checks, and nobody is left unattended at their weekly meetings. Once again, an Idaho community is the focus of a nationwide movement to push out any spaces for those they consider not normal or immoral. But those, or also I should say, this is also an example of Idaho's laws having consequences, since that library law deems the act of homosexuality as obscene. The bright side, though, Mindy told us, Clutch has received more positive phone calls than negative, and her experience has always been every time something like this pops up, her community shows up to support them. Unfortunately, that same grace has not been given to the Nampa Library.
This project will be difficult, but through hard work and dedication and effort of all the state employees, everyone involved, we can get there, and we can get there.
2 steps forward, 1 step back. Yesterday, the state controller's office was touting perseverance to solve the problems of Luma. That's the business system used by Idaho employees for things like HR, payroll, budgets, and buying stuff. Today, we've learned that pledge has been tested when it came to light. Close to $15 million that was supposed to go to property tax relief just didn't. The Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee found out that large chunk of cash was unaccounted for, which left lawmakers to figure out where it went and how to get it to Idahoans.
The 2 payments needed to go out in August, and we didn't recognize that there was a $14.5 million miss on the revenue until about the middle of September.
We're not going to blame Luma for everything in these next 3 days. However, it did make reconciliation at year-end, closing the books, extremely challenging.
We need to be careful and make sure that we earmark that, or however you want to call it, for homeowners' property tax relief, and that it doesn't just get lost in the revenues that are coming in.
Well, Luma has only been in place since July. As we learned yesterday, there are growing pains to this, but between double payments, non-payments, not being able to track revenues, and now this, it's clear the kinks are still being worked out. Brian Koberger could still face the death penalty if he's convicted of killing 4 University of Idaho students. A judge making that decision today, while another judge heard the state's arguments in the continuing abortion trial. Hunter Funk tells us details on both of those and more in today's 411.
Remember when Brian Koberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students, asked to get the death penalty taken off the table if convicted? Well, the judge came back with his decision today and said that's not going to happen. Koberger's team tried to argue the death penalty is unconstitutional and cruel and unusual punishment, but Ada County Judge Stephen Hippler denied the motions to remove capital punishment from the case. Koberger's trial is set for next August.
Our physicians confused about how to provide care to pregnant women.
And among my colleagues, it doesn't appear to be an active concern.
The state finally gave arguments in day 5 of the abortion law trial, Adkins versus Idaho. The state claims it's not the court's place to add and clarify exemptions to the laws. The state called in and out of state doctors to the stand who claim the law is clear and not affecting routine care. The trial should wrap up tomorrow, then we'll wait for the judge's ruling. Court documents show on Monday, Tonya Huber pleaded guilty to harboring a felon and possession of a controlled substance during a prison break earlier this spring at a Boise hospital. In exchange, prosecutors dropped her eluding a police officer charge. Huber also agreed to testifying truthfully in court hearings for Skylar Mead and Nicholas Umfenauer. Back in March, Huber was arrested for trying to help Mead elude capture after he escaped police custody with the assistance of Umfenauer. Huber's sentencing is scheduled for January 24th. Idaho State University is restructuring the Office of Equity and Inclusion across all campuses. In a letter sent to students and staff last week, they say programs like the Diversity Resource Center and Gender Resource Center will be eliminated. They will now be considered student support services. The center will now be known as the Office of Equal Opportunity and Title IX. Tomorrow, the Idaho State Board of Education is holding a special board meeting at 1 to talk about DEI. We will be live streaming the meeting on KTVB Plus and KTVB.com. Yesterday, we told you the Idaho Humane Society's program called Inmate Dog Alliance Project of Idaho halted during COVID and never started again. But actually, the Meridian Canine Rescue took over the program in 2022. It's not exactly the same, but inmates at the Idaho Department of Corrections still help train and care for dogs until the dogs find adoption. It's called the Education Program for Inmates and Canines and has been successful since it started 2 years ago. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Hunter Funk.
Well, if you've been in Idaho long enough, you've likely heard the term le bois. It's French for the wood, and legend has it that's what was uttered when the Boise River was seen by French fur traders for the first time. Thus, the Americanized name Boise, coincidentally called the City of Trees. Well, there's a Boise man who's saving trees from the landfill with the hope that they make it into your living room. Aspen Shumpert has his story.
Zane Everman has always been a craftsman. You might have even sat on some of his work.
If you've ever been to Barbarian Brewing, I did both of their tap room. They built their bars and all their furniture.
But now he's putting his craft with lumber into a purpose.
The goal here is to save trees from the landfill. And they come out for a multitude of reasons: bugs, pests, storm damage. I can mill them, dry them, flatten them, and sell to the general public to save these trees from going to the dump.
Everman is converting recycled trees into slabs for handcrafted furniture.
And I can see no better way to do them a service is to give them an afterlife and live on for generations by local craftsmen making tables and stuff for businesses and shelving and family heirlooms, and anyone in the valley can come here and buy local wood with a story.
Once the tree makes its way to Everman's workshop, Le Bois Milling, he'll cut the tree into slabs with his bandsaw.
We flip all those slabs, stack them and sticker them up into bundles,
where they're placed into a kiln to dry.
When it goes in there, it's 100% wet. So to get it in natural air drying outside for every inch thick it is, it takes about a year drying naturally.
But inside the kiln, it takes about 2 months for the slabs to dry.
It sucks all the air out of that chamber and heats up to 160 degrees. You gotta kill the bugs in it. You gotta sterilize it, and you gotta dry it.
The slabs come out and get flattened and smoothed, ready to be crafted into something new.
Say their kids grew up swinging on a rope swing under that tree in their front yard, and an insurance company comes by and says, that tree's got a crack in it, your insurance is gonna triple. And they have to take it down. It's a heartbreaking situation. No one wants that, but I can take that bad situation and turn it into a good thing here.
March, Everman has saved 50 trees from the landfill. He plans to get that up to 100 in the coming months. There is a variety of ways he's getting these trees. He says it's mostly working with the cities, specifically Boise, Meridian, and Nampa, about trees planning to come down. He's even got some trees that had to come down for ACHD projects, which, Brian, I thought was interesting because when we hear about all these ACHD projects or signs having to come down, and sidewalks, being widened, sometimes we forget where those trees are going.
Well, I assume they have to be a certain size, though, for him to work with them,
They do, yeah. He does work with certain sizes and about 12 different types of trees. So he sees a variety.
All right. So, yeah, maybe that's where some of those trees, maybe along State Street, we'll see those trees end up in his shop. All right. Thanks, Aspen.
All right, let's talk weather. The forecast today brought to you by the letter W, as it has been a wildly windy Wednesday. A warm one, and for some of you, wet as well. So, hey, first alert weather conditions today and tomorrow. Today, for those strong winds, you can't miss them if you've been out and about at all across the Treasure Valley or Eastern Oregon. It has been howling. And then tomorrow, rain becomes a big headline, even in the mountains, which means visibility could be lowered at times from the wind blowing either dust or snow across roadways over the next 48 hours. And traction could become an issue as well, especially with a heavy rain tomorrow morning, likely right at morning commute time. So it'll be a soggy kickoff to our Thursday as that atmospheric river off to the west is pumping a lot of moisture our way, but also warm air. And that makes for a very interesting weather setup for us in the coming days. Here's the wind. Again, the big headline today has been that wind. These are our current sustained winds, a 24-mile-per-hour wind in Mountain Home. We've seen gusts well above 40 miles per hour throughout the day today along the I-84 corridor. Keep those hands at, I want to say 10 and 2, but I'm told now it's 11 and 3. Either way, keep them both on the wheel. That wind will start trying to buffet your car around just a bit out there on the interstate. Temperatures today reaching for 50 in Boise. Not quite there, but close. Barely out of the 30s in Twin Falls. We did get above freezing in many of our mountain locations, and we will actually continue to warm in the coming days as we are in the warm sector of the system. So here's what was that bomb cyclone last night as it rapidly intensified. It has weakened and moved a little bit to the north. Still, though, we have a tight surface pressure gradient, obviously, in our neck of the woods with those winds that are out there. This is what we turn our attention to, though, starting tomorrow. We can see a lot of moisture coming our way across northern California and the Pacific Northwest. We are starting just now to see some of that precipitation able to overtake our dry surface layer here in the Treasure Valley. So we may have just a few very light sprinkles across the Treasure Valley tonight, very light rain and some snowflakes in the Magic Valley, turning to light snow in the mountains. But our winter weather advisory that's in effect right now for the West Central and Boise Mountains will expire tomorrow morning as snowfall will turn to rain below 7,000 feet, but above that 7,000 to 8,000 foot mark in the Central Mountains, we could see 1 to 2 feet of snow by the time it's all said and done. So a winter weather or winter storm warning continues for the high elevations of the Central Mountains. Here's a timeline for McCall tomorrow. You can see a little bit of snow in the morning when those temperatures are closer to freezing, but upper 30s tomorrow means this will be a cold rain throughout the day, even in the mountains. In the lower elevations, we'll see rain likely throughout the day, maybe a few breaks here and there. Temperatures likely up to about 50 or so tomorrow. We'll start off in the low to mid 40s. That's our lows in the Treasure Valley, climbing to about 51 for Boise, upper 40s for the Magic Valley, and again pushing 40 up in the mountains for our Thursday afternoon. Even warmer on Friday. We'll hit 56 degrees in Boise with wind continuing through the short term, just kind of nuisance weather. Be ready for it to be wet and windy long term. Then we see colder air pushing in over the weekend. Rain and even snow showers become possible Sunday and Monday morning, with cool, wet weather on deck all the way through the middle of next week.
All right, several comments tonight about an LGBTQ flyer being posted at the Nampa Library, like this one from Scott, who says, considering the political climate and the transgender athlete stuff that's going on right now, sharing bathrooms and locker rooms, he unfortunately thinks issues like flyers being posted, those kind of things are only going to get worse and continue to empower groups against the LGBT community, says Scott. The Clutch article tonight, or the story, only serves to prove that human ignorance breeds fear, fear breeds hate and discrimination, and often promotes violence against others. Idaho is no place for hate, says Steve. It makes me angry. People are so narrow-minded and unaccepting but claim they are Christian. Leave the LGBT community alone. They're not hurting anyone. I support them completely, says Mary in Boise. And this one, thanks for Mindy for providing a safe space for the LGBTQ teenagers of Nampa to gather. The ignorant individuals of Idaho who see this as a problem are the ones that need help and should be educated better. You're the ones being harmful to the community, she says. We aren't interested in LGBTQ stories. KTVB is too woke. Stick to reporting the news. This is from Steve. Well, Steve, if that was the case, why are so many Idahoans focused on this, including our elected individuals? Why are they so focused on what happens within the LGBT community and looking to stop it? That's the question I have for you. So to say it's not news, it kind of is, but it's also about our community. So that's why we bring it to you. Finally tonight, I love the irony that Aspen did the story about trees, said Ken. Ken's from Greenleaf, by the way, so that kind of fits in. I don't know how we missed that, Ken. It just went right over my head. Just focus on other stuff today, but that's excellent. I like it. Aspen, we're going to do more stories on trees, maybe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.